The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
Chiefs head coach Andy Reid made some pretty wild comments about Zach Orr and the Baltimore Ravens defense ahead of their Week 4 matchup.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast.
Kevin, this is going to be a game where you sit here and you look at it, and with all these injuries that you're dealing with right now, you just hope that they find a way to get it done. But you've already talked about the bleak look at that Ravens defensive line. I would think that attacking this Chiefs offensive line is something you'd want to do, but it doesn't look like you're going to have the players maybe that you want to be able to do that with.
Yeah, it's true. And, you can look at some of the stats behind the Ravens defensively right now, particularly when it comes to the pressure department. And the Ravens just have not been able to get anything in that regard. Over the course of the first 3 weeks of the season, the Ravens at this point in the year are 30th in pressure percentage at 14.4%. They're tied for 30th in sacks with just 3 of them. And they're also 30th in blitz percentage, so they're not really sending guys either, 12.1% there. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Ravens do try to get a little more aggressive against Patrick Mahomes. The problem is if that does not work and you do not get those quick wins, as we talked about in the first part of the show, Mahomes will pick you apart. It will be a guy that can settle into a soft spot. We've seen Zach Orr sometimes, play guys off more. And we saw against the Lions, there were multiple times where they would send, for example, Nate Wiggins on a corner blitz and Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown. That pressure would not get there, and they just settle in. And the Ravens aren't a defense. They do not like letting teams beat them deep. They will play a guy in single high and have him roam that area of the field. That's been rookie Malachi Starks for them for the most part. So you're not going to see a lot of 60-yard, 70-yard touchdowns down the field. They don't love giving those plays up, but on the contrary, what they do give up is their philosophy is essentially bend, don't break, where they'll let you take the short stuff. They'll let you march down the field a little bit. And then ideally for them, once you as an opponent get to the Ravens, 40-yard line, 30-yard line, they tighten up there and force you into a kick, whether it be a punt or a field goal. Now, that hasn't really helped the Ravens this year because they are second worst in the league at points given up at 96, I believe. So again, that hasn't been a great year in that regard, but Mahomes is someone that is so hard to game plan for and so hard to beat. And even, since there's no Rashee Rice in this game and we know Xavier Worthy's going to be working his way back and, Marquise Brown, obviously very familiar with him here in Baltimore. He's a guy that can make a play or two if you need him to. And you have other guys as well that are stepping up. Juju, I know, has played a role. And I'm a big Jalen Royals guy, although I'm not sure how much he's going to actually play in this game. All the guys getting healthy. I still think that with the Chiefs offense being the potentially higher powered unit that we know it can be, even though we haven't seen it, it all starts up front for me. And so for the Ravens generating pressure without a guy like Madubuike, even when Madubuike was in the first 2 weeks, they weren't really generating a ton of pressure. Yeah. Add that and the fact that you still might not have Van Noy. You might be without Travis Jones, who takes up a lot of double teams in this defense. The reason Madubuike is able to work so effectively and efficiently is because teams know how good Jones is, and they are double teaming him. And Madubuike is having those one-on-one opportunities. You don't have both of those guys. That's a big concern point.
You mentioned statistically who's playing well. Starks playing high. Statistically didn't have the greatest week last week for Starks, for Humphrey, for Hamilton. Is it to the point now that for Orr, it's searching? We are always prepared because we have a rookie left tackle that's got to be the place that you try to push. But quite honestly, Josh Simmons has rose to the occasion and is not the weakest tackle on this starting 5. So then does it become, okay, we're just going to take our stars and we're going to change it up. Are you going to send Wiggins? Are you going to send Hamilton? What does Orr need to do to help OA out, maybe to try to get some of that pressure, particularly from that one side of the field? Do you have a recipe for it? Because I want to know.
Yeah, it's just different looks in my opinion. I think honestly, you can't confuse Patrick Mahomes with sending guys to the line. Are they going to come? Or are they not going to? This is Patrick Mahomes we're talking about. But I still think that getting a little more aggressive is probably where the Ravens should try to go, because you are searching. You're trying to figure it out. Now, Mahomes, much like the top quarterbacks in the league, Lamar, Josh Allen, et cetera, they're not the status quo. They're better than the status quo. So you need to start to figure out how can you how can you make these teams get a little bit antsy? With Mahomes, he's going to be cool, calm, and collected. Kelsey, he's going to be cool, calm. Like we know that these guys have been there and done that, especially against, again, a Ravens team that they have had success against over the course of their careers. But I would try to maybe send guys up the middle, potentially, try to get mismatches. And even you have guys like Marlon Humphrey not playing well. Roquan's been very up and down this season. And so for a guy like Owe, and you have a lot of guys who are motivated, like a lot of contract year players, always been one of those guys. We saw Matabike a couple years ago have a career high, got $100 million and, kind of off to the races there. But it also would help if Jair Alexander were to play in this game. He's been technically off the injury report these past couple of weeks, but not in football shape, and the Ravens have been holding him out. So it is possible that this is the week that he comes back, and maybe that opens up a couple more things to you. Maybe you can send Marlon Humphrey off the edge in some of those situations from the slot, and he can make a couple of plays. And even if it's just forcing Mahomes out of the pocket, making a more difficult throw than just standing in there and just delivering strike after strike. But at this point, it's just like, do you have the horses on the D-line to do that? And if you are without your entire starting group, you're calling up guys off the practice squad, trying to put together this patchwork group of defensive linemen against the Chiefs offensive line, then again, we know Jawan Taylor's a big story there for sure. And can they attack Josh Simmons and make him have a struggle game? I don't know, but you're kind of running out of options, because I always give it a month. I say, 4 weeks, that becomes a trend, right? First couple weeks, you can overreact to a lot of different things. But in my opinion, at this point, if it doesn't work against Kansas City and it hasn't worked against some of these top, because Kansas City and Buffalo and Detroit, those are the teams you're going to be playing in the playoffs, right? Cleveland, great win. Browns defense is great. You're not going to see that team in the playoffs. These are the tests for both the Ravens and the Chiefs of like, hey, where are you in terms of measuring up to those top teams in the league? This is a huge game in that regard too.
Well, and I think that the big thing when you start looking at the Ravens defensive line is it goes past just the defensive line, because you have those defensive linemen keeping your linebackers clean, getting them the ability to make plays for your defense. And if you have a completely new defensive line, that's going to affect your second level as well. So I think that's going to be a big key in this game. But when I look at this and I start looking at the Chiefs and how they're going to be attacking the Ravens, it all comes down to Lamar Jackson. Don't get me wrong, Derrick Henry's a fantastic running back. I think he is one of the best that's ever played. But it's a question of, can you keep Lamar Jackson in the pocket and force him to try to beat you with his arm? And it's not that he can't, because he can make throws, and I understand that. But it's when he becomes a dual threat quarterback, it becomes an even bigger issue for a defense, and it becomes so much harder to defend. That to me is going to be a huge key in this game. Is Spags able to keep him in the pocket and make him try to force throws when he doesn't want to?
The big thing with Lamar is he's so hard to defend against. And so he's shown that over the course, and especially as he's grown as a quarterback, that him standing in that pocket and he just can deliver strike after strike. Lamar loves to do that. And he's even openly admitted that, like, hey, I would much rather throw the football than run it. Like he enjoys that aspect of it. I know that when he gets out of the pocket and he's running around and he can make stuff happen with his arm and with his legs in those situations, it becomes like as a defender, you're like on your toes. Like, man, do I try to cover? Do I try to come up and stop Lamar? Like and I thought Detroit did a really good job in week 3, and credit to him in that defense. Kelvin Shepard, he was essentially at the end of the game just rushing 3 guys and using a spy on Lamar Jackson. And that spy, whether it was Derek Barnes, I think Jack Campbell was that spy a lot of the time, Lamar would have nowhere to go, and that spy would be right there waiting for him. And they made one-on-one tackles in the open field, and that seemed to have a pretty big impact on the game. The Ravens, that offensive line also is not looking great. I know there was a lot of Chiefs, 49ers, Ravens controversy in terms of how those tackles went at the end of the second round in the draft last year, where obviously the Ravens got Roger Rosengarten, and there were rumors that maybe the Chiefs wanted him. Obviously, Kingsley is now in Kansas City because of that, and Rosengarten's been really bad, quite frankly, to start the year for the Ravens. He gave up 6 pressures in that Detroit game, and you have guys like Daniel Falele and Andrew Voorhees, who are still very inexperienced. They're having up and down moments. Ronnie Stanley has struggled at points this season as well. Like, Lamar feels like he has happy feet in the pocket. Like, it feels like he doesn't trust the Ravens offensive line fully for the first time in honestly a little bit. So if those Chiefs guys can get home and win quickly and get to Lamar, feels like he's holding the ball for a little too long on some of these plays, and trying to maybe bail out a little bit early. Like, that's not when Lamar's at his best. Lamar's at his best when he can sit back there, survey, go through his reads. And I think the next step, obviously, is just the Ravens have to scheme open guys where if he's getting pressure quickly, just check the ball down, or throw the ball away, right? Live to see another down. It's not all Lamar's fault. Like 7 sacks, 30 pressures is what PFF charted the Lions having, 33-0, which is ridiculous. You see a number like that and you're like, man, what's going on? Hard on the offensive line. Lamar could have thrown the ball away a little bit too, but that's a huge point in the game too, because Lamar right now just feels like he doesn't trust the group in front of him.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
The battle of the unbeatens in Tampa is going to be a wild one.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The Bucs and Eagles, they keep squaring off because they keep winning divisions. I mean, that's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, James. I'm sick of seeing Tampa Bay in September. This has happened, what is it now, 4 matchups in Tampa since 2023. They played week 3 that year in Tampa. They had to go to Tampa Bay in the wild card matchup. Then last year, they had to go to Tampa Bay in September, and now this year in 2025. So it's been 4 times in the last 3 seasons this has happened, and the Buccaneers have had the Eagles' number in pretty much all of those matchups outside of the Week 3 regular season game of 2023. So this was the big turning point of the Eagles season last year when they got blown out against the Buccaneers. So I'm wondering if that's going to be a similar kind of lesson they learned last year to this year after a Rams game that kind of woke them up. So it's a big time matchup between, I think, 2 of the top 4 teams in the conference.
Yeah, 2 teams that were involved in games that had blocked field goals down the stretch, just came out
Weird.
on different sides of it. But Louis, yeah, as the visiting team, I defer to you. What is the biggest story right now for an Eagles team that honestly, they looked a little pedestrian on offense, but seem to have gotten some things on track there in the second half of week 3.
Pedestrian was an understatement for what that offense looked like in the first half. The second half, though, they were incredible. I mean, Jalen Hurts had over 200 yards passing, 40 yards on the ground, 4 total touchdowns. They finally just started playing aggressive and leaning on their passing game more. Before that, they were playing just far too conservative and scared. And it's kind of funny, James, what I was alluding to earlier. That Buccaneers loss last year kind of woke them up. It changed everything because the next week they had a bye week and they said, we have to change our offensive philosophy. We need to feature Saquon Barkley and lean into what we do best, which was running the football. They ran all the way to a Super Bowl. So this year, it's ironic they're playing Tampa Bay week 4 again because they're learning the opposite lesson where they've almost taken that approach too far and they've become almost too conservative in the name of being a run-first offense. But now it was like before that second half against the Rams, they were afraid to take any sort of chances. They were playing like they had no wide receivers instead of having maybe the best duo in the league in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and a great tight end in Dallas Goedert. So it's funny they head to Tampa Bay at the same time of year, almost learning the opposite lesson that this year what's required of them is, I think, completely different than last year. So I think they need to lean on their passing game more, and I'm going to be watching that against the Buccaneers for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because I will talk about that a little bit later in the show. And I do have to give like a disclaimer. Getting to Tampa a day earlier than normal, it's not going to help. It's going to be hot.
It's going to be what, over 100 degrees in this game? The Eagles are probably going to have to wear green like always. It's just, it feels like Groundhog's Day, man.
Yeah. And look, I know Philly's gotten a lot of criticism for how the offense looked over the course of the first 3 weeks. A.J. Brown was non-existent up until that second half against the Rams. don't, if you're a Bucs fan, do not get it twisted. Like, this is an offense that can break out for 30 points in the blink of an eye. So, obviously Saquon was a huge part of that last year. We'll talk more about Saquon in a little bit. I'm going to have to flip it over to the biggest story for the Buccaneers, and obviously that's going to be Mike Evans. Mike Evans leaving the game against the Jets with the hamstring injury. We saw the hamstring injury take him out last year for a little over a month. He tried to play through it, and I was honestly a little concerned that Mike, being who Mike is, he was going to try to play through. He knows how big this game is. He knows how important it is, just like the Ravens game last year. And I had basically said, for the Bucs, they need to protect him from himself. Do not let him play this week. This Bucs team is so ravaged with injuries. The list of players that have missed time or are continuing to miss time: Tristan Wirfs, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Kalijah Kancey, Luke Gedeke, Cody Mauch, Jalen McMillan. You are talking about your right side of the line, your 3 of your top 4 receivers, your starting left tackle, and one of your best young defensive players. So this is, and I know Eagles fans are smiling because they're like, yeah, well, we remember last year when we didn't have Lane Johnson and A.J. Brown and
Devontae Smith.
So, turnabout is fair play, but this injury to Evans comes at the worst time because we don't know the status of Chris Godwin right now. There's a chance, albeit a small one, there's a chance that Wirfs and Godwin make their season debuts in this game, but Godwin isn't going to be his normal self. So losing Mike Evans, the way this offense has struggled because of the protection, because of the defensive fronts that they faced, you needed that guy on the outside. You needed someone that could be that quick slant guy that could get those tough catches over the middle, that could move the sticks and extend drives. So losing Mike Evans for this one, let alone looking ahead to Seattle and San Francisco, best case scenario, he returns against the Lions. This is a really tough stretch to be without your number one.
And when you look at it, James, like, these are 2 of the best 4 teams, I would say, in the NFC, both at 3-0. It's a really important game early on in the season if you're fighting for the 1 seed in the NFC. I think it's going to be between the Eagles, and that's why last week's win against the Rams was so important, because they're going to be up there. I think you look at Green Bay as well, and Detroit in the NFC North, but Tampa Bay, quietly has been, maybe not even quiet's the right word, but they've been one of the most consistent NFC teams over the last 5 to 6 years with Tom Brady and now Baker Mayfield. So they're up there. Like, they are a threat to get that number 1 seed in the conference. So this is a really important game in September. It's kind of crazy how, at least from the Eagles' perspective, they've had some huge matchups already. They had to play a divisional opponent week 1 in Dallas. They had to play the Chiefs again, the Rams, and now the Bucs. So the NFL certainly, they raised the stakes early on, at least for the Birds.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, Tampa started the same way with the divisional opponent. Then they get the Texans and the Jets. That's a little bit easier.
Well, that's a huge test for Tampa too. So, that's 2 of 4.
Yeah. And I know that Eagles fans and Bucs fans don't see eye to eye, but can we all take a collective moment to just kind of giggle a little bit that after this week, either the Chiefs or the Ravens are going to be 1-3?
1-3. That is crazy. Yeah.
That's hilarious to me.
That's the NFL. This is, James, one of, to me, like, the craziest starts to an NFL season that I've ever seen. I mean, even the Eagles win last week. And what you were talking about, how both teams were dealing with like a blocked field goal on opposite ends. I've never seen that. And the Eagles had back-to-back blocked field goals to get that win. So it's been a crazy start to the season, but the Eagles are hoping that history does not repeat itself this Sunday. They have some demons they need to exercise in Tampa Bay, because regardless of injuries or whatever's going on, the Bucs have had their number when the Eagles have to travel down to Florida. So we'll see what happens, but I'm excited to talk about matchups for sure, because it's a pretty even battle. Even with the injuries, I still think this is going to be a close game.
It's a Micah Parsons revenge game, but the key for the Green Bay Packers is getting this offense on track.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The biggest storylines. I can't think of any big ones that are coming off the top of my brain. Anything for you, Peter?
Mike McCarthy revenge game. Oh, that's right. Mike McCarthy's not the coach anymore.
I forgot about that. Matt Eberflus against the former division rival?
Yeah, maybe.
All right, so let's go ahead and do it. Micah Parsons' first game back against his former team, the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones has already said There will not be any kind of like tribute video for Micah. This is a business game for the Cowboys. They're not having any of this Micah Parsons shenanigans. For you, obviously Mike is the biggest storyline here, but what are you looking forward to see?
So interestingly, I don't think that for the Packers, I don't think that's the biggest storyline. I mean, I think for Micah Parsons, it certainly is. But for this Packers team is coming off a really dispiriting loss to the Cleveland Browns. I think that is what they're focused on. They are focusing on this offense getting back to being what they're all about, pushing the ball down the field if they can do that. And so I think for me, that's the storyline that is most salient for the Packers and for Packers fans. Would they love to see Micah Parsons go off and have one of those just like signature 3.5 sack dominating performances? Yeah, sure, they would love that. But for the Packers to really feel good about where they're headed, this is a defense that loves to give up explosive plays, does not have an impact pass rusher like Myles Garrett or anything close to it. They used to. He plays in Green Bay now. And so this is a defense that they feel like they can get after. You joke about paths to victory. I did a show last week with Spencer German, Marcus, and we were doing that. We were twisting ourselves in knots, trying to like laughing about a Browns path to victory, and the Browns won. So for the Packers, this is let's go get right against the Cowboys. I think it's less for them, at least, about Micah Parsons.
And there's no such thing as a must-win game in, September, but it does feel that way for both sides a little bit. Like from the Cowboys perspective, right? They're 1-2. You lose this game, you're 1-3, and things start to get dark really quick, especially with how good the NFC is. And I would assume same for the Packers, right? I mean, they're 2-1, but because of the division they play in and because of how good Detroit looked on Monday Night Football, and the Vikings have bounced back a little bit, it feels like this is a game they have to win to at least just keep pace with everybody else in that division.
Yeah, it's the comparison that I've made is like if you're a golf fan on par fives on the PGA Tour, if you make par, you are usually giving up a shot to the field. Yep. These are the sorts of games where you just have to win. Like you're going to play enough good teams that you're going to get beat. You're going to play the Ravens. The Packers play the Ravens, the Eagles. They have to go to Minnesota. They have to go to Detroit still. They have tough games left on the schedule. These are the games. No Tyler Booker, no CeeDee Lamb, a defense that has already just been barbecue chicken through the last 3 weeks. Like Russell Wilson had a career game against them and gets benched like 8 days later. I mean, that's the kind of thing where you have to go and take care of business if you're the Packers, and you can't think this is the Browns. You can't think this is a team that you should just walk all over, that you can just show up and beat. I think they kind of did that last week, Marcus, and it bit them in the ass. They can't look at it that way. They have to get up for this game, and I do think the Micah Parsons revenge factor, like everyone knows what the deal is with Micah, and the fact that he has had the kind of impact that he's had here, I think that brings so much more juice. Plus it's prime time. It's in Dallas, where the Packers, where certainly Aaron Rodgers, but the Packers over the years have had a lot of success. I think that helps them in that way.
Yeah. And for the Cowboys, this is I don't want to say it's a pride thing, but they played so poorly against the Bears last week. You're at home. You mentioned big time stage. What kind of fight do you have in this game? You are way undermanned when it comes to talent. And even if the Cowboys were healthy, they would have been in trouble here. But you mentioned it. No CeeDee Lamb, no Jonathan Mingo, who would have been, a guy that could potentially replace CeeDee Lamb in the starting lineup. No Tyler Booker, no Cooper Beebe. So that's 2/5 of your offensive line that are out. The defense has been an issue all year long. I think for Cowboy fans, this is a big game to see what they have in Brian Schottenheimer, because if they come out and lay an egg and there's just no fight and it's clear that things are going in the wrong direction, that's going to be really concerning. But if the Cowboys make this a game, and I'm not saying win, but if they could keep it close to the fourth quarter and you see the effort there and you see them playing above their talent level, I think even in a loss, that could get you excited about the direction of this team long-term.
Well, the difference between last week and this week, for at least for a Packers opponent standpoint, is Dak Prescott. Like we've seen Dak Prescott carry inferior talent over the years. I mean, he's had to. Now that was, like with CeeDee Lamb, no run game, no offensive line. This is now George Pickens. But we know what George Pickens, from a combustibility standpoint, is capable of doing, creating big plays and all those things. Dak is not going to get fooled. He's going to be able to move enough to make some plays here. And so if you're the Packers, you have to be, on your P's and Q's, certainly on that side of the ball, understanding like if you get into a shootout, Dak can go touchdown for touchdown. against the defense if the defense is not playing particularly well. Now, the flip side of that, and we'll get into this matchup, I'm sure, later in the show, Marcus, but the Packers have allowed the fewest explosives in terms of passes this year. And so if you're going to have a defense that's going to keep you in a game from that standpoint, like if George Pickens, if he catches 3 40-yard passes, that could be, a huge thing. The Packers don't give up those big explosive plays. And so if they play to their normal defensive standard, that makes it tough.
All right, let's take 2 minutes to talk about the Micah thing, because I have no doubt that Micah is going to show up and play at a high level. Like, he always gets really juiced up for these games. So I have no doubt that he's going to play well. What I'm really curious to see is, how do the Cowboys handle Micah and really just the Packers pass rush overall? Because I think they're going to want to try to run the ball, so they're not in all these drop back situations. No. And I think Dak's going to want to get rid of the ball quickly. So, you don't have these long developing plays where Parsons can win, but this feels like, with the Cowboys offensive line situation, one of those, oh yeah, Micah Parsons, this is why he's worth everything the Packers gave up to get him.
Well, and I had Terrence Parsons Jr. on the show earlier in the week, and he was talking about, no video. Micah's going to take that personally. Like, after all we did for that team. I mean, Terrence is still a Cowboys fan. He grew up a Cowboys fan. This is hard for him. And look, there was that quote. I thought Adam Schefter did a pretty despicable job of putting context on the quote when he put out, like, it's going to be painful to sack Dak. And it makes it seem like he's trying to hurt Dak Prescott. What he said was, if you read the whole quote, is it's going to be painful because he cares about Dak Prescott and that team. And it's a reminder of this fissure that happened between those two teams. Matt LaFleur addressed it on Wednesday, said, I'm not worried about Micah freelancing and trying to do too much because Micah Parsons can just be Micah Parsons and wreck a game. He doesn't have to do anything extra. Now, do I think they're going to move him around and maybe do some special things with him? Yeah, but they were already doing that, Marcus. Like, that's already built in here. They're moving him around as a queen on the chessboard type of piece anyway. Head up over the guard, head up double A, mug pressures. They're going to do everything they can to try and mess with an offensive line that has had its problems and is now going to play without their first round pick.
And that's nothing new for Dallas. I mean, that's the same way they use Micah Parsons.
Right.
So there's going to be nothing that they see on Sunday night that's new to them. Like, they've seen Parsons wreck practices when you've got a guy over at the tackle chipping him. They've seen him wreck practices, going one-on-one against your center.
Yeah. Now, I know we got to get to a break, Marcus, but I do have to point out Rashawn Gary leads the NFL in sacks right now. Lucas Van Ness has double-digit pressures. They're the only team in the league with 4 players who have double-digit pressures. It's not just Micah Parsons. The rest of this defensive front can wreck a game too. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet, whether I'm in the mood for a player prop, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to my Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
What up, dude? Are y'all fired up in Oxford that we get this game annually?
Oh, yeah. Yes, that was a non-negotiable. I didn't even think it was an option that Ole Miss wouldn't get LSU annually. I'm pretty fired up about that. What I'm really fired up about is that Ole Miss and LSU could end up back on Halloween. I am really fired up about that. That is something that needs to happen. Now that the Alabama game is not an annual opponent for LSU, that bye week before on Halloween weekend, kind of the need for that goes away. And if the SEC is doing what they're supposed to do, that game is going to end up back on Halloween weekend.
It's interesting, man. I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole, but it's interesting that was a non-negotiable. I don't know that was the feeling here, which is so weird for LSU, Stephen, because like, you all have Mississippi State, right? Like, you've got your in-state, the game that of course, like, that was a non-negotiable. Egg Bowl is going to be played. LSU just doesn't have those. You know what I mean? Like, there isn't. It's Ole Miss, it's Florida, it's Alabama. Now it's Texas A&M as well. It's Arkansas for the stupid boot. We're a weird collective here because we lack even Georgia, which doesn't have their conference in-state opponent, has their thing with Auburn. I don't know, man. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing the Halloween thing come back. I guess I just hadn't even thought of that yet, that it could play out that way.
Yeah, something like the last three times in the last 10 years when they've beaten Ole Miss in Tiger Stadium, LSU fans have stormed the field. I mean,
Yes. Like, I don't. So I have a feeling on that altogether. Like,
Yeah.
stop storming the field, period.
Yeah,
I don't care
period,
who
yeah.
it's against. Like, stop doing it. Like, they storm the field against everybody now for big. It's like, stop. Children, stop doing this. Stop running on. Like, you've won 3 national titles since 2003. Stop running onto the field. Like, it's just not worth doing. But I don't know. Who might it be a killjoy?
But part of the
Yeah.
reason that LSU doesn't have a rival is because from the 70s and 80s and the early 90s, Ole Miss wasn't good. I mean, not consistently. And the rivalry that was built up with Johnny Vaught way back in the 50s and 60s and all of that kind of just went away in the mind of the LSU fans. But that never went away in the minds of the Ole Miss fans.
That's a fascinating point, because I would say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but like, if you ask my grandfather, like, he would tell you Ole Miss, right? From the, you're right, the Johnny Vaught, like that old 50s, 60s. My dad would probably tell you like Alabama from the 70s. For me, born in the 80s, growing up through the 90s, the LSU Auburn thing for me was awesome. You know, my coworkers here at ESPN Radio in Baton Rouge, Jacob Hester, Matt Flynn, were part of some great games with LSU in Florida. So they've been moaning that LSU in Florida is not going to be played every year. It's kind of just like, I just think it's generational, you know. But it would be great, man. I'll tell you, Lane's got this thing rolling in a way that I don't know when the last time Ole Miss has had this much sustained success. And I know this is a big one, obviously, if Ole Miss is going to continue toward a path in the playoff. And I know that the giant news about Trinidad Chambliss. So, Steve, let's start there. I mean, fill us in. I mean, that's obviously the biggest storyline in this game right now is who, and it's going to be Chambliss starting, but fill us in on all that there.
Trinidad Chambliss is going to get his 3rd start in the LSU game, and that makes sense because last year, we'll talk about it, LSU's kryptonite on defense for Blake Baker was the running quarterback. I think Jalen Milroe is still running for touchdowns at this point. But Austin Simmons practiced fully on Tuesday for Ole Miss, and he is available even more so than he was. And to put that in perspective, the last 2 weeks, he was just in a boot watching practice. Okay. This time he was a full participant in practice. But Austin Simmons at 90%, you don't face this LSU defensive line with a quarterback at 90% on a bum ankle. You just don't do that. So you put in a mobile quarterback that you know that last year Blake Baker had trouble with Texas A&M, Alabama, and those games. And Trinidad Chambliss, he's just kind of the story of college football right now. He has a cool name. He's a really twitchy player. He makes all kinds of explosive plays. It's a fun matchup with the D2 guy, Trinidad, going up against that LSU defense that honestly, Matt, I'm going to be honest. When I watch LSU play, they look like Ole Miss in 2024. They do. Yeah. All over. Defense, everything. Struggling offensively, the inability to run the football. They are almost a carbon copy of that 2024 Ole Miss team. And the way you handle that LSU defense is probably the same way that they handled last year the Ole Miss defense. Score points, move the ball, get the explosives when they're available, and try to keep this a 1-score game in the 4th quarter and let the pressure build on LSU. If they're going all in, they know they're going all in. Make them feel the pressure, especially on the road. And I think that might be the best shot for Ole Miss in this game.
Hey, does the offense change if it's Chambliss or Simmons?
It does. It actually does. It might look same, and there's a lot of the same concepts that are run whenever their passing plays are going about. But Ole Miss was in 13 personnel in the 1st quarter of last week's game. They don't do that with Austin Simmons. I mean, they had Luke Hall, Trace Bruckler, and all those things. They played 4 tight ends in the 1st quarter against Tulane. So they're going to be more quarterback design runs. They're going to try and use his strengths as a weapon essentially against this LSU defense. Obviously, Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss is going to try to take the aggressiveness and use that against the LSU defense. But it's going to be much more run heavy. You're going to see more exotic personnel groups, and they're going to, it's going to sound weird, but throw the ball down the field a little bit more.
I have a theory about Chambliss. This is not this is not a hard and fast held belief. But I'm curious. I want to bounce it off you. I'm curious your thought. So he's obviously been very impressive. The 300 pass yards, 100 rush yards last week against Tulane. And I've had a chance to watch Ole Miss. I didn't watch week 1, but I've watched the other 3 games. Just because of the time of day, it's worked out that I've been able to see him a good bit. Division II, Ferris State, you step up, and obviously a significant step up in level of competition. Coming against Arkansas, where no one really knows who you are, and Arkansas's defense is terrible. And then you play Tulane. And he's been impressive. I'm curious if this is just going to be a completely different animal for him with this LSU defense, that as impressive as Chambliss has been to this point, is this maybe this is I guess my theory would be, this is a step up that he's about to see something he hasn't seen yet, or anything close to it from Division II or Arkansas or Tulane, that this could overwhelm him a little bit with what he's about to see from Blake Baker.
Yeah, this is the best defense potentially that he is going to see all year. Now, the benefit of that is if Trinidad Chambliss does all right against LSU and Ole Miss wins the game, you feel pretty good about him going to Athens. You feel pretty good about him going to Norman if he's the guy. But the other thing is absolutely true, and that's probably why it's important that Austin Simmons is more ready than anybody even really expected, because of there is the chance that this is such a step up. This is a bridge too far for Trinidad Chambliss. And we'll see on Saturday night. It's going to be on Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss to put the kid in advantageous situations to where you're not dropping back to where, hey, it's 3rd and 11 and you're having to go against Harold Perkins coming off the edge. That's not what you want. You need to move the ball. You need to honestly play a little bit slow. I know tempo is their thing, but they have the athletes to play slow and just kind of methodically old school move the football. It doesn't matter if it's a low scoring game. If Ole Miss wins this game, they're likely a favorite to make the playoff this year. I
agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And if LSU wins this game, they're likely a favorite to make the playoff this year. This game is absolutely massive. And honestly, Matt, it's the game of the week this week in SEC play. I don't care. Don't tell me about Alabama and Georgia. Just because of the brands, they're going to Alabama and Georgia. This is the game that has a chance to be the game of the week.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs.
Today is the day we look around college football, we give out our locks, but most importantly, right here at the beginning, we give you our official prediction. I told you I've changed my mind 20 times about this game, and so it's time to lock something in.
Ooh.
Clint, you all know the stakes. You all know what is on the line. I don't have to set this game up for you. Clint,
yeah,
I'm going to give you the honor off the tee box. How is this game going to play out, and what's the final score going to be? And as you answer that question, you can tell me if you're locking anything up.
Daniel, I'm locking it up.
He's locking something up.
This game got a stranglehold lock.
Yikes.
Stranglehold.
Wowzers. Okay. Just as a refresher for the people, at time of recording, the line is currently sitting at 3. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
You're saying 3? 3 points.
3.
Georgia is favored by 3 points at home, and the over-under in the game is, I just had it on there it is, 53.5 points. So stranglehold lock, and it is what?
Just gonna let's chat. Let's chat, fam.
Yeah, bring it in.
33 games is nice. It's cute. It's a good number. It's fun to think about these things. Home win streak, it's great. It's also fun to think about regular season win streaks before. It's fun to think about Alabama busting up streaks for us. We've talked ad nauseum about this. It's fun looking at rushing stats. It's fun talking about Nick Saban. It's fun talking about who's going to put belt to butt and whose daddy is who and the curse and the black stupid jerseys and the black eyes. It's fun to talk about all that. I simply want to I want to make this about football for a hot second. May I?
Okay. Just this one time.
I want to make it about football.
Just this one time, though.
At the end of the day, you still have to go out. It's paper, it's numbers. It doesn't mean anything. It means something when I have stats and reference that give me a context for what's about to take place on Saturday. And here's what I know. Okay. These are the two most talented teams in the nation. There's no doubt in my mind. Recruiting rankings out of high school tell me, in transfer portal, tell me that the most talent resides on these two rosters. It will be on the field. That's great. The second thing that I know definitively, we have the best football coach in all of America roaming the sidelines for Georgia. Third thing I know, this team is different than last year. Kirby has already said it. He's been so direct about this. This team is playing as a team. He doesn't care about individuals, and that was last year. When he has the opportunity, he comments about this team. Daniel, since 2017, the last time Kirby Smart lost a home game, it took double overtime, a missed field goal, and 4 turnovers to lose to South Carolina in 2017.
Permanent rival South Carolina. Sorry, I had to get it in.
Sankey, I had hope for you. I had hope for you. You have diminished that hope. If you want to say talent-wise we're a wash, fine. You want to tell me advantages we're kind of a wash, fine. You cannot tell me that coming off a bye week at home, when the last time he lost at home, it took all manner of turnovers and a missed field goal to only lose by 3, 20-17 to South Carolina. You can't tell me factually, you can get in your feels. That's fine, fan. You can feel all you want. But you tell me that you don't lock up the home favorite in a giant game with playoff implications coming off of a bye with so much at stake, with a better team than you had last year, in which you were beating the team that should have wiped you out at home and not let you come back, except Cardiac Dogs came back to play. Daniel, give me Georgia and I'll give the points, and I'm locking it up. This game is Georgia's to win, and they will win.
All right. Let me tell you the things that I know definitively about this game. Great. Okay. I know that you could call it whatever you want. And again, all joking aside, it's fun to go back and forth with Alabama fans. I'm just going to speak honestly about football for a moment. Okay. The reason Alabama lost to Florida State is because they weren't ready to play the game and they were not prepared to tackle. They missed 1,000 tackles in that game. Clearly, the work that they did in fall camp or whatever, thumping people or doing whatever it was that they were doing, whatever patty cake drills that they were running, that Nick Saban would have rolled over in his grave if he had ever seen them do, were not working. They were not ready to tackle. They could not tackle Florida State. Those issues are fixed, Clint. So we can talk about how many rushing yards per game Alabama allows.
Sure.
Those issues are fixed. Georgia's not going to have a ton of success running the football. This Alabama team will be ready to play, and they will tackle better.
Defensive line is healthy for Alabama.
Here's something else that I know. Jam Miller is going to make a difference in this game. He is going to make an impact in this game. He is back, and that is a big deal for him because he's markedly better than all the rest of their backs. Justice Haynes ain't walking through that door, Alabama fans. He gone. By the way, he's quite good.
He's quite good.
and so's Caleb Downs.
Yeah.
And so are all the other players that chose to leave you.
Interesting.
But still a lot of talent there. Jam Miller's better than all those other backs. He's going to make it.
Hands down.
And so I do expect Alabama to have more success running the football. So more success stopping the run, more success running the football. I also expect Georgia's secondary to be up to the challenge. I expect Georgia's secondary to be improved. I do not expect Ryan Williams to go off the way that he did last year, or Jeremy Bernard the way that he does every game this year, because he is a definitively better football player than Ryan Williams is.
1000%.
I expect Georgia's secondary to be improved. I feel confident, Clint, that the final score of this game is going to be 27-24. I almost would bet on an exact score if I could on FanDuel. I feel confident the final score of this game is going to be 27-24. I have no idea who's going to win. I'm being dead serious. I have no idea who's going to win. I will go with, for my official prediction, I will go with Georgia because they're the home team for no other reason. And for no other reason, I'm telling you, I think these teams are dead even in terms of put them on a neutral field 100 times. And I think they go 51-49 or something. I really do. I think that Alabama is that good. I think the reason they lost to Florida State is because they weren't ready in week 1. If that Florida State game's in week 2, I think they blow Florida State out. I really do. And so I'm going 27-24. That's about the range that I think the game's going to be. And so I'm not going to lock up the over-under. I'm not going to lock up the spread because it's right on the number. I don't have a lock in this game. I am officially picking Georgia.
Come back tomorrow when I have Don't Sleep on, because I'll just tell you, this is interesting to me. Injury report, Daniel.
Oh, yeah.
One Gaston name ain't mentioned one time. Ernest Green is.
Oh, boy. Who did we say earlier in the week was the most important offensive lineman we needed to have back?
That's what you said.
It was Ernest Green. And I stand by it.
His name is Juan Gaston.
Mm-hmm.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however I like to bet, whether I'm in the mood for a player prop, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to my Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Illinois versus USC in a new age Big Ten battle in Champaign.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
USC versus Illinois. They haven't played each other since the Rose Bowl back in 2008.
Didn't go too well for us.
All right, so it's another crossover edition. Locked On USC, Locked On Illini. USC, they're 4-0. They're coming off a home win against Sparty, 45-31. Sonny, you guys, you had a little bit of a rough weekend. What the heck happened in Bloomington, man?
Yeah, it was just one of those, just a bad night overall Saturday. The first quarter didn't end up too bad. It was like 14-7. And then the wheels absolutely just fell off. If you really want the cliff notes, if you're going to really make me relive through that whole nightmare again, I'm going to make this as quick as possible. But essentially, you're talking about Indiana and Illinois, whether they acknowledge it or not. Kurt Cignetti and Brett Bielema know that they're kind of fighting for the same spot in the Big Ten Conference. And so this game was very important for both programs. And coming into the game, it turns out that 2 of Illinois starting cornerbacks were out, injury report. So we're like, well, one we expected, Xavier Scott. Jaheim Clark was supposed to play, but he was marked as out on the injury report. Not ideal. Then in the second quarter, we lose the captain of our defense, Miles Scott, who has the earpiece. So now we're down 3 of our, very important defensive backs in that defensive backfield. And then to keep this nightmare going, Mark, we ended up losing 6 out of our 7 defensive backs in that backfield. So we're at the point where, Kurt Cignetti's not one to let his foot off the pedal. And so when you put a potential number 1 overall quarterback, match him up with an assassin of a head coach and some very good wide receivers, it was just one of those where, if I'm being real with you, Indiana was the better team that night, Saturday night. But it's the injuries and the depletedness of that roster that made the score 63-10.
Yeah, no. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to watch the entire game. I every time I blinked, there was a new score on the scoreboard. Yeah. But to your point, I mean, you lose 6 out of your top 7 DBs, and you've got a veteran quarterback. You have a couple of good receivers for the Hoosiers. And as you mentioned, Cignetti, he likes to play the role of bad cop, I guess is the best way to put it. He likes to get in. So, yeah, that probably didn't bode well. It's a bad combination.
Exactly. I mean, I was telling my Discord, that was a game in Illinois situation that 90% of the country would have lost by 30-plus points. It's
not 53 points better than your squad. I'll go there. Yeah. That day they were better. 53 points, that's what the scoreboard said. But play that game again in Champaign or maybe a neutral site, and you have your, at least half of your personnel available.
Right. That'd be nice. Yeah.
Probably a different result.
Yeah, it is. You just got to tip your cap to them, and then you just move on, right? You're still 3-0. Coming into that game, you had the longest win streak in the entire nation, having won 7 in a row. You got your butts beat, and it just so happens the entire nation watched it. You fell 14 spots in the AP poll. Now everyone's counting you out, and so now it's, Brett Bielema just recently got an extension. He's, I think, the 4th or 5th highest paid coach in the Big Ten Conference. We're going to find out this weekend if, what he has up his sleeve when it comes to really rebuilding the confidence of a team that was shaken Saturday night.
Well, and that's what I want to talk to you about in this first segment, is what does USC need to know? Because I watched Illinois when you guys played Duke, and that, Duke was moving the ball, but, you guys created 5 turnovers, and that was the difference, and you saw it on the scoreboard. So if you're Brett Bielema right now, what have you learned about your team through 4 games?
You've got a very smart quarterback. You've got depth when it comes to your wide receivers and your defensive backfield. Well, I mean, we'll see when it comes to the injury situation coming Saturday. And you've got a veteran team.
Okay.
Big question marks right now. And I'm telling you, Mark, we've had to deal with this for the 3rd straight year. It seems like every season we start off the first third of the season or first half of the season wondering what is wrong with our offensive line. And that's exactly what's going on this year. We were counting on this offensive line, which, by the way, we return everybody. And we're a top 1/3 offensive line in the Big Ten Conference last year, returning a future NFLer in J.C. Davis.
Okay.
When we got all those guys to sign on to come back, we thought, hey, you've got a veteran offensive line. You got a senior quarterback who's going to be in the same system for 3 years in a row, playing under the same head coach, same offensive coordinator. And that's kind of like a cheat code. We thought we were set. But the offensive line, once again, for the 3rd straight years, just has a super rocky start. And it's up to Brett and our offensive line assistant coach, Bart Miller, to figure this out, because it struggled in that first half against Duke. It even struggled in that first half against Western Michigan. But eventually, halftime adjustments were made, and Illinois dominated in the second half. I think they had a combined score of 56-9 in the second half of those 2 games. But it struggled in the first half against Indiana, but Indiana's got some dogs on that defensive line, just like you guys do. And so it's one of those situations where Illinois couldn't overcome and couldn't make any halftime adjustments because simply the scheme and the talent on the other side was better. And Brett, well, the pressure's on because right now they've got to figure something out because you guys are going to throw similar monsters at us on Saturday.
Yeah, right now USC leads the nation in sacks. I guess the question USC fans want to know about is your offensive line better at run blocking or pass protection, because you're bringing up USC's D line. If they're not getting to the quarterback, they're also creating a lot of pressure. So what should USC fans know about your O-line? What's the strength right now? Is your running back healthy? I think I read somewhere that you're dealing with a running back issue as well.
Yeah, we've got a three-headed monster when it comes to the running backs. We've got Caden Fagan, who's 6'3", 255 pounds. We've got Aiden Lawfrey, who's you're referencing. He was supposed to be healthy. He was not on the injury report last week against Indiana, but he ended up not playing. I guess he had some issues in the pregame, so they decided not to test it. And then we have a young sophomore named Khalil Valentine, who's kind of different from the other two. He's kind of a quick, speedy, can change directions very quickly type of running back. Again, you have three solid running backs back there, but the problem right now is that Luke Altmaier is just not getting much time when it's time to make a throw. And so if you're asking me which one is a strong suit right now between pass protection and rushing, I couldn't tell you. Our running backs aren't getting much when it comes to the running game. I believe we had 2 yards total rushing against Indiana. And then the pass protection, Luke Altmaier got sacked 7 times. So it's simply one of those, and it boggles my mind because this is a Brett Bielema team, Mark. Brett Bielema is supposed to be known for his offensive linemen. There's no head coach in the entire country that has put in more offensive linemen to the NFL than Brett. And yet, for some reason, this is an issue.
This is what concerns me is, I'm looking at the, Vegas, and they're saying, all right, USC, I think the line started as a touchdown favorite. It's dropped a little bit, but Illinois is supposed to be a good team. They just got embarrassed nationally, and here comes USC on homecoming. Are they running into a buzzsaw where Illinois is saying, you know what? We're tired of everybody, pointing their fingers and laughing at us. Let's go show everybody why we were considered a playoff team. So that's my concern. And some of that's a little bit of a PTSD because I'm still waiting for USC to beat a ranked team. I don't care if it's at home or on the road. They need to check that box before I'm ready to say, all right, USC is back. Even though, they have some flaws as well, they can play with anybody. That's what I need to see. And that's what concerns me is that Illinois is going to put it together this weekend.
I mean, that's a valid concern, Mark. A lot of the country, and I'm not even talking about national fans, a lot of Illini fans have essentially counted us out on Saturday. But I will tell you that since he's taken over Illinois, Brett Bielema tends to follow up embarrassing losses with some quality wins in the very next game. So what I'm hoping is that, again, Saturday, it's homecoming in Champaign. Big Noon is visiting Champaign for the first time ever. So, again, 63-10 on Saturday wasn't nice, but I hope the energy is going to be there. The fan base is going to be there. And now that a lot of people have counted Illinois essentially out, I thought this line should have been a pick-em. I think a week ago, it would have been a pick-em, or at least very close. But then having this sort of drubbing happen to have, I think, last check for me was 7.5, believe it or not, according to our friends on FanDuel. I'm hoping this is just one of those situations where Brett and that coaching staff are going to be in their offices 24 hours a day, coming up with a game plan. And the key is just fix that offensive line. If you fix that offensive line, I think everything else will take care of itself.